All right, folks, all of you know I'm a huge supporter when it comes to school choice. I don't care what it is, public school, private school, magnet, charter, homeschool, online. I don't care what in the hell your kids go to as long as they get educated. But the real question for us is why in the world do we continue to sit here and fight this ridiculous battle, charter versus traditional schools? What should happen, what shouldn't happen? The real issue should be what happens when it comes to your kid getting educated. Charter school enrollment is at a record high. Some 2.9 million students are enrolled at more than 6,700 charter schools nationwide. In the city of New Orleans, that entire school district has converted to being a charter school. So what's up with the rapid growth of charter schools in America? With the president of the National Alliance of Public Charter Schools, Nina Rees, on the show, plus our panel. Nina, how you doing?
Great, thanks for having me.
Here's one of the things that's interesting to me, again, and we've had discussion on this show, where folks say charter versus public when they don't realize that most charter schools are actually public schools.
In fact, all of them are public schools. They are operated under the same rules and regulations that that public schools oversee are held accountable to, and they are, by and large, serving a large population of students who are not currently being served very well by the traditional system. Here in Washington, D.C., close to 50% of the student population is in a charter school, and across the country, over 1 million student names are on charter school wait lists.
Go ahead.
So as more charter schools have grown over the years, you've also seen an increase in the number of families that want to send their children to charter schools.
Accountability is a huge issue for me. The reality is this here. There are some traditional public schools that do a very good job. I say they should stay open. Those that don't, you should change them or close them. There are some charter schools that do a very good job, but there are some, frankly, that are horrible. And so where do you come down on that idea of accountability where it says, look, if you're not doing the job, if you're not, if it's not working, you got to go?
Absolutely. The key difference between a charter school and a traditional school is the fact that it can be closed and it should be closed. There's an authorizer that oversees the charter compact, and parents get to pick and choose these schools. So if there are not enough families who want to send their children to a charter school, that charter school cannot keep its doors open. If we don't hold on to this grand bargain, the whole charter school concept will fall apart. So it's very important that we hold ourselves accountable to a higher standards and that we meet the needs of our families.
Howard Fuller, who was with the Black Alliance for Educational Opportunities, former superintendent in Milwaukee, a huge school choice advocate. When he was on this show, he said for him, public education is a delivery model. He said part of the problem is we have treated it as the be-all to end-all, as if there's no other way to educate children. Do you agree with his assessment?
Absolutely, and what you see in New Orleans actually is the perfect example of what happens when you move from a centralized bureaucratic system, a school system, to a system of schools that are all independent, all catering to the needs of the families that they're serving. They all decide what they want to teach in the classroom, but at the end of the day, they're held accountable to the state standards and the accountability system that the state has put in place. Ultimately, that model works better for our current education and for the needs of our students than the traditional model, which is more of a one-size-fits-all model that may have worked at some point in time, but nowadays with large urban districts in particular, where you're attracting so many students from different walks of life and needs, it's simply not working as well as it should.
But one of the critiques of charter education is that with public schools, teachers have to deal with whatever shows up in the classroom. And oftentimes you have children show up in the classroom who are hungry, who maybe don't have the best background that has prepared them for that situation. And some people allege that with charter schools, people have made that choice, so you're sort of skimming the top, so to speak. How have charter schools done in sort of reaching the needs of children who are really, really greatly in need of extra assistance? Are they better at moving the needle with those students than public schools are?
So a couple of answers to that question. When you look at the most sophisticated research studies done on charter schools, where you have a control group of students who want to get into a charter school but are unable to because of a wait list, even in those instances, you notice that the students in charter schools do better compared to their counterparts in the traditional system. And that's because we're taking you're taking some students who have motivated families, but be that as it may, the charter schools are actually doing a better job of educating those students. The other thing that we've noticed in New Orleans and in states like Tennessee that have recovery school districts, which go after the worst performing schools and the neediest students, is that charter schools are actually stepping in to meet the needs of those families. And so that's kind of one of the areas that I think we should pay more attention to. All things being equal, we want to make sure that charter schools are meeting the needs of all the students who come to them. Yes, some parents are going to be more motivated to send their children to charter schools, but at the end of the day, rising tide lifts all boats, and And what we want to see also in this scenario is a response from the traditional school system. You want to make sure that the traditional system is coming up with new ways of teaching and learning as they have here in Washington, D.C.
I want to hear about the finances. I heard in the state of Maryland there's some severe cuts coming statewide. The Baltimore City School District already cutting 100 employees in the next few months. Not teachers, but they're starting with, just support personnel. What happens with the money when you're talking about charter schools? And then the second part I want to know is, how do you engage parents to make sure that they're participating alongside their kids' experience in schools? Is it different from the way school systems work?
So again, charter schools are public schools, and so think of it in terms of a child whose needs are supposed to be met. So whether it's in a charter setting or a traditional setting, you want to make sure that your focus is on the child and not the system. So for every traditional school that's losing a teacher, there is a charter school that's gaining a teacher, so to speak, to serve the needs of that child. And Baltimore is a great example of a place that has a burgeoning charter school movement, but unfortunately the state law has a lot of restrictions on growing those charter schools. So I think that we need to pay more attention to finding ways to expanding the law in the state of Maryland. As far as parents, again, engaging them in creative ways is extremely important. Most of the families who send their children to charter schools are low income. They're working several jobs. But what charters have done, which is a little different from the traditional system, is that they have found ways to engage these families into the education of their children, reaching out to them over the weekends, after hours, and not just holding the teacher-parent conference meetings at times that don't suit the family's needs.
All right, Nina, I really appreciate you being here. Thanks a bunch. We'll keep having our education discussion.
Great, thanks for having me.
Thanks a lot.